Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do my monthly reading wrap-up for November 2021. This is the penultimate monthly wrap-up for the year. November was a really good reading month in total. I read 8 books across 2 genres with 5 authors, in a sense, with 1 editor involved. Hence why I'm a bit uncertain about how many authors to say, because one of them is a collection with multiple authors within it. And the first of the books I'm going to talk about today is The Day of the Triffids, written by John Wyndham. Now, this book, I have been wanting to read something by John Wyndham for years, but I've never got around to it. However, last month, a friend of mine, Rachel, known as Canardi on BookTube, reminded me about John Wyndham because she read this exact same copy of this book. And this made me think that I should actually get around to reading him, and I have. And I really enjoyed this book. The premise of it is relatively simple. This is a world where there is these giant living plant creatures called Triffids. We harness them to do basic manual labour, like pull ploughs in the field and carry heavy objects and really basic stuff. And they can be deadly because they actually have got poisonous like venom and things, but they're not as a rule. However, one day one night I should say, there is this meteor shower in the sky with a passing comet, and everybody in the world mostly is looking up at it, marvelling at this comet because it's really bright and remarkable. However, there are certain people that don't see it for whatever reason. One of them is the protagonist of the book. He is in hospital recovering from a minor little accident that he had with his eyes. So his eyes were bandaged and he couldn't see the sky. And therefore, when everybody wakes up in the morning, basically, or depending on the time of day, depending on the time zones, everybody is blind apart from those people, like the main character, who didn't get access to the sky. So they can see. So the whole world is blind apart from the few. It's a very strange and interesting concept, and one that works extremely well. And the thing that I was really happy by is often with some of the masterworks of this era, the main characters can frankly be sexist, misogynist, unpleasant people, let's say. I was almost going to use swear word then. And they are not enjoyable to read about. This is a rare case where the main character is that very, very mildly, but he is aware of it and he tries not to be. He's trying to not be sexist and trying to be decent towards everybody. He does believe in equality and indeed fairness, so he's a decent person, and that's actually a nice thing to experience with some of the masterworks. And basically it's him with the other survivors that he meets. I can see them trying to survive in a world where there's still people alive and in big gangs of the blind, and there are gangs of sighted people who are using it to basically profiteer, using the herds of blind people to basically do manual labour, using them like Triffids. And the Triffids are still around. And the Triffids are stranger than normal now as well. So this is a very interesting concept. Rachel did a review of this, which I'll link in the description box below, and I really enjoyed this and I'm very glad that I read it. The second book that I read is an ebook, so I'll put a picture up on screen now, and that is Silk and Steel, edited by Jane A. Southard. This is the short story collection I mentioned at the start of the video, hence why I'm unsure how many authors to say I've read this month, because this has got multiple authors within it, like Ellen Kushner, Aliette de Bodard and Yoon Lee, to mention only 3. There are many more, there's about 15 of them, and this was a really interesting short story collection. I read this because a friend of mine, Raya, known as the Book Feature on BookTube, she started a monthly book club up to try to encourage herself and others to join in and read more short fiction, which I used to do years ago. As you know, I did a monthly live show with Rachel, but kind of just finished that for no real reason. We just sort of ended up stopped reading short fiction. So now we're reading short fiction again, this time in a little book club idea, and this was really enjoyable. All the short stories in this Silk and Steel collection were all fantasy, and they all feature characters that are LGBTQIA plus. I probably said them letters wrong, you know what I mean? They are basically gay, or in some manner anyway, but put it bluntly. And it's an interesting collection because these are just short, quick fantasy stories for the most part. Obviously relatively simple premises because they are short stories with often romance in them, but not necessarily always. They're not always like pure romance, so they are relationships between people, not necessarily the romance always. And it's a really nice collection. Obviously, as always with any short story collection, especially by multiple authors, some stories for me worked really well, some were mediocre, some were dubious, frankly. But that's always the same with any collection. I mean, there's only a few collections I've ever read where I can say that actually every story was like, wow, amazing. And overall, I really enjoyed this collection, and yeah, I was impressed. I would very recommend this short story collection heavily. The next book that I read is 6 Wakes, written by Mur Lafferty. Now, I've been meaning to read this for years. However, getting hold of a physical copy of this book, no way I'm buying an ebook copy of this, because the ebook copy is actually more expensive than physical copies in the UK, has been quite difficult because for some reason I've ordered this several occasions over time, and they keep being cancelled. I don't know why, but it's just one of them things. Some books are just weirdly hard to obtain. This is one of them. Anyway, this is an interesting premise because essentially it takes place on a ship that is almost a generation ship in a sense, but a generation ship with a twist. Rather than, obviously, you have the crew where the next generation are basically in some sort of stasis, or indeed the children, and they take over when the previous crew die, to keep flying towards a distant planet where you've got a big group of people wanting to colonise it in some way. This is actually not quite that. This is actually a series of, you've got 6 crew members, and they have a series of clones, essentially limitless clones that can be grown on board the ships as and when they have an accident or die for whatever reason. However, these 6 people are all got dubious backgrounds, let's say. I'm not getting into reasons why, and none of them entirely trust or know each other to that extreme level. And one day, one of them wakes up. Obviously they must have previously died, that's hence why a new clone is being woken, cloning vat essentially. However, she wakes up, and inside the cloning vat with her is loads of blood. Obviously that's not the normal way of a cloning vat works. Normally obviously be clean and tidy and professional. So something has obviously happened. She gets outside. 4 of the other crew members, 5 of them in total, have also been, re-lifed in cloning vats. So therefore 5 of the 6 crew has been killed, and by somebody. Obviously this crew member would obviously be instantly suspicious, and this is a very interesting sort of, basically it's a murder mystery on board a spaceship flying through space with a series of clones. The concept is strange but brilliant, and the writing, I was really impressed by this. Frankly, the writing was extremely strong. The characters and development of them was remarkable. And I cannot recommend this book enough. This will definitely be one of my favourite books of the year because I was really impressed by this. Because the intrigue and the closeness, because this is not just a murder mystery as well. This is a very close, confined murder mystery. They are on board the spaceship. They don't have exactly an excessive amount of room to physically manoeuvre. They can't go off too far and suspiciously plot murder in the another room and then run through the ship, or run through big open English states that sort of traditional murder mystery location and, you know, murder people and have people, you know, clues all around the gardens, that sort of thing. It is not. This is a spaceship. You can't, it's confined. Certain parts you just can't access easily. So it's a very curious location as well for the setup, you know, and it really does help define and develop the characters in ways that you wouldn't otherwise see, because normally the characters would be delivered in a particular way. Here, they've got to be delivered in a certain way because they're cloned. They can't move very far, so it's curious and one that I really did enjoy fully. Next, I read This Is How You... cut that. The next book is an ebook, so that we picture up on screen now, and that book is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone, co-written by them both. This is a really interesting sort of science fiction novella, which I really enjoyed. The premise of it is actually rather curious, because this is essentially, there are two organisations existing in this universe. These two organisations are fighting a sort of a battle between them. You know, this sort of with covert sort of spy tactics and, you know, subterfuge and sabotage and, you know, assassination sort of thing throughout of all of history, human history. So you've got these agents and they'll go through time and they'll try to manipulate events. They'll go to like significant wars and every significant event that you can think of. Or sometimes they won't be significant by historical points. There'll just be little things that there might be, you know, they'll go somewhere where there is a landslide and one of them might try and stop the landslide, which will alter something in the future. And then the other organisation doesn't want that though, because it will make them weaker in some way. It's like a, you know, this sort of war of spies and subterfuge throughout history and throughout time, which sounds interesting enough. However, the two main agents, the main agents for each side, however, they have a very interesting relationship with each other. Basically, they're leaving each other essentially sort of pen pal letters in various locations, in time and space, you know, and in really curious ways. Like they'll be written in the rungs of the trees, or they'll be written in the lights of, you know, a particular sort of, you know, abandoned facility where they know the other agent's going to be. It's a very curious concept and a really interesting one. I don't want to say too much more about the concept because there's a very large spoiler I could easily say and that would ruin things. So I'm not going to say more, but suffice to say the characters are very interesting. They are simply called Red and Blue. You know, sort of assigned each other colours depending on their agencies, and it's a very curious setup and one that I really enjoyed, with amazingly well written setups, interesting characters, and it's strange, but it worked really well and I'm really happy I read this. And overall I would heavily recommend this book to everyone. And finally, even though we're only halfway through the 8 books, the last 4 books are all, oh yes, Terry Pratchett books, as you would expect. I've really tried to make a bit of a push on the Terry Pratchett recently. I want to basically finish off reading all these 4 books before too much longer. I don't want this extended into the end of 2022, frankly. So the 4 books I read are The We Three Men, which is the first of the Tiffany Aching books, Monstrous Regiment, A Hat Full of Sky, and finally Going Postal. This is the first of the Moist Run Lipwig novels. All 4 of these books I will do separate reviews of in the coming month. I'm currently about almost 10 books behind these with where my reviews are going live. I've already filmed most of them already, so it's just a matter of going live with the videos over time. I enjoyed all of these really heavily. For the record, all 4 of these novels were new to me Terry Pratchett books, so I was really interested by these, especially the first of them, The We Three Men, because this is the first of the Tiffany Aching novels. I've never read any of the Tiffany Aching novels. Years ago, I was happily reading Terry Pratchett books over and over again, frankly, when I was younger. However, my Discworld collection became broken years ago, and I kind of didn't want to read it when it was all broken into different formats. like 2 different paperbacks and 2 different hardbacks. So I didn't and stopped reading Discworld for like 15 years, and now I've got them all in these Discworld Collector's Library editions. The other book that I am very happy that I've read out of these 4 in particular is the Going Postal, which is the first of the Moist van Lipwig novels, which I know there are 3 of them featuring this character. He's a con man who is forced upon literal pain of death or threat of death by Lord Vetinari to become the new Postmaster General of essentially what is the Royal Mail, you know, the British Royal Mail, but the Discworld version in Ankh-Morpork, which is basically the Discworld version of London. So this was a really fun novel, and all 4 of them were really interesting. I mean, Monstrous Regiment was an interesting one to do with gender equality, and the 2 Tiffany Aching books were to do with this young character who is going to become a witch, and although Granny Weatheraxe is obviously linked to this world, and it's an interesting set of characters, and I will talk about all of these in the upcoming future, and I'm really happy that I've read them. And with that said, that is it for this video. So if you've read any of these books or you would like to, then please leave a comment. I will link them all in the description box below as always. All my social media links can be found in that same description box as well. And also, if you have any book suggestions you think I might enjoy based on me reading any of these, then again, please leave a comment. I'm always interested to try new authors and new books and new genres as and when they occur. So with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.